Well, thank you very much for having me. Mark, thank you for hosting. Mad, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to share this story with you. I don't know how long this talk is, so if it starts to get long, I'll just cut it short. You are welcome to interrupt me, ask questions. I have no problem with that along the way. At the end, if you want to save a couple of questions, I'm happy to explain anything I can. This is a two-part story. So this is going to give you background about the King of Cashmere and how it was discovered, but it's also going to give a little insight into the evolution of mineral collecting and mineral preservation. And it's just going to happen organically along the way. So I'm going to start with this. This is the region where it comes from. So this is the Karakoram mountain chain in Pakistan. And, oh, I got the wrong pointer, sorry. And this is it on a map, so you can see it's way up there in the Shigar area. And so it's northern Pakistan. That's the mine. It's the Biansa Pass, and the name of the mine is the Gong mine, like G-O-N, like Gong. And that's the mine. And I've actually been to this location. The last time I was there it's been a while. I was there in 2000 on my last trip there, or just before 9/11. That's how I sort of remember. It was pre and post 9/11. And this was sort of the story that got me there. This was a tourmaline from Afghanistan that I purchased from a dealer at the Tucson show in 1996. And this is in Steve Smale's collection. And it's a fabulous object. And at that time, they hit a pocket. And that's what brought me over to go to Pakistan to begin with, is to see the rest of this pocket, which I didn't get. Wayne Thompson wound up getting with his cohorts, and he knew I was going over there, and I was just a fledgling dealer at that time. I didn't have the money or the wherewithal to support them, to support the purchase. But I did get two great specimens. And at that time, and this is sort of leading into the evolution, this is Dave Wilbur and Joe Freilich. And Joe was an avid collector, despite the strange stories that surround him and things that had happened later, which I don't know who might know the background on. I do. And he was working at Fabricant, which is a big diamond company in New York. And he started collecting minerals probably in the mid-90s. And he hired Dave Wilbur, who has impeccable taste, to sort of help him curate his mineral collection. And unfortunately, you can't see here. Let me see what I've got going on. Let me change that. Let me change that. Let me change that. There we go. In the back there's another showcase right there that's going the opposite direction with a whole nother display. So this was a walk-around display that they did in the year 2000 at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. And, this is part of the evolution. So at this point in time, some of the world's great aquamarines that were out there were mostly single crystals. Gene Myron had this incredible 2.5-inch crystal with this multifaceted termination that was, this big and like that big around, and had just impeccable luster and facets on the termination. But in today's world of aquamarines, it's a totally different landscape. It's completely evolved. And so at this time, I was shocked by the next specimen, I'm going to guess if the slide's right, is this piece. We would call this the Freilich Aqua. And when I saw this, I took like, whoa, this is a new frame of reference. This is, you can see the hand, and it had a little bit of muscovite right here, and it was so geometric and so clear and perfect, and it was sublime when I saw this. And so this is on display on the other side of that case at the show, and I go in and I'm like just standing there, and Joe like gets one of the police officers who's watching it, and he says, "Do you want to hold it?" And I'm like, "Oh my, yeah." And so he opens the case and makes this big show of it and puts it in my hand, and it was this really wonderful experience that I still remember to today. And it's like one of those moments you never forget. And when I held it, I was just like, I turned it over immediately and looked at the bottom, and I was like, this thing came off a matrix. I was like, well, why? Where are the matrices to things like this? And so this is the beginning of the evolution. And at that time, a single crystal and matrix crystals of aquamarine were Spartan in collections. There weren't lots of them. And that started to change. And so this story to find the King of Cashmere really started almost 20 years ago when this happens. And so then we started to see examples of incredible aquamarines on matrices. And so this is, again, the next evolution. And these two examples are fabulous. Both of them are outstanding specimens. Each one, they're pretty similar in size. I think The one on the right's a little taller, actually, overall. And that's about 9 inches. Barry, correct me if I'm wrong. That's in Barry's collection. And this one is probably about 7. And you started to see things like this. And so I teamed up with a friend of mine named Marco Amabili. He's an Italian professor at McGill University. And he's a mineral collector, and he's a fanatic for aquamarines. And so he and I started working together to try and find aquamarine specimens and get them out in better condition. And that's him on the I guess that's the right or the left, and obviously me on the right. And that's a few examples that were in my collection at the time that we were displaying. And sadly, I didn't get a photo of the showcase next to it, which is Barry Yample's great collection of Oro Preto topazes. So it was on display a long time ago, and I forget, this is like a decade or more ago. This is probably 15 years ago. The little 2-foot case, yeah, but a very powerful 2-foot case. Yeah. So Marco and I teamed up together, and he started collaborating with some people that were in the region, and we said, let's make a plan to try and get these things out more intact. And so we gave them diamond chainsaws, which are inspired by Collector's Edge and the work that they did at the Sweet Home mine. And we were like, let's get them diamond chainsaws. They're going to use these things. They're going to be able to take advantage and find stuff. The diamond chainsaws sat there, and they didn't use them for probably almost 7 years. They rusted. I had to get them new ones, and they still wouldn't use them because their mentality was that we grew up in this region. We know it. We know what it takes, and you know, your technology is not going to work. And that all, there was a pivot point where that changed. So this piece, which I think, Mark, this used to be yours.
Yeah, it used to be mine.
Yeah, so this was Mark's, and this came out in about 2004, 2005 now, I'm guessing. And this was the first time I'd really seen an aquamarine on a matrix. And to give you scale, this object is about that big. Is that about right, Mark? Yeah. Overall. So this was a really fantastic piece. And so when I saw this with this guy, Muzaffar, I said, okay, I can work with this guy. He understands that these are the types of things we're trying to preserve. And so over time, we started to see more and more. And the next thing you know, they decide to use the diamond chainsaw. And so they didn't use it in the pocket. They didn't use it for the extraction. They used it after they got the blocks out using drills. But at least they used it. And this was used in 2018 for the first time at the site up on the mountain. And you got to understand where this is, and you're going to get all that perspective in the next few minutes. But it's not an easy place to work with. So I understand partially why they were apprehensive about using it, but once they figured it out, it changed. Everything changed. And so they used this on blocks for this pocket, the pocket that had the garnets and the albites. It was such a big pocket, they were able to get these things out intact. And this piece is probably the diameter of this petrified wood piece here. So this is like that big around. That's in Salim's collection. And so this was one of the treasures from that pocket. And there were a number of pieces from that pocket. This came out. That's a fabulous piece. And you love the garnets that are just like suspended in the aquamarine. Again, there's another 2 examples from this pocket. So this was a very unusual pocket. And the first time we'd seen garnets, aquamarines, and albites, and quartz, and mica all in one. And in a good way, like not just as, you know, a little dot here or there. The garnets were prominent. So with that, in the 2018 season, and them using the diamond chainsaw, they decided to go and start working again. And this is where, like, sort of the theory of chance favors the prepared mind comes into play. So, you know, not all aquamarine pockets are created equally. There's good quality, there's bad quality, there's luster, there's no luster, there's size, there's aesthetics, there's damage, there's faulting, there's geology that's been, you know, put its footprint on it, and, you know, broken crystals and recrystallized them. There's all kinds of factors. But everything just lined up in 2019 for like the discovery of a lifetime. And that's what this is. And so now we're coming up to the mining region, that's the Gone mine. You can access it pretty easily. You can drive right over this bridge. I've driven over it, and you can walk to the foot. Getting up to the mining area is not so easy. And so this is a little bit about, and let me see what I've got on the pointer. Let me change it to this. So all of these lines, these white lines that you're seeing, those are all the pegmatite dikes that are going across the country rock and are going into the mountainside. And they go in, straight clear in, and who knows where they stop or where they come out. And each one of these little red holes is a mine tunnel that's worked by a group of tribal miners in the region. So everyone that lives in the surrounding area, this mountain is owned by 3 brothers. They have a share in everything that comes out. They then lease each one of these little holes to different groups of young men that go up every year and try to find things.
What are the elevations?
Well, right now, I mean, you're already at probably plus 10,000. And then this is another, you know, this is like another 1,000 feet or something like that, the whole thing. You'll get a scale here in a few minutes. It's high. And it's you know, and it's not, you can't collect here all year round. You know, once winter comes, you're done. Even on the lower levels, you can't collect in the winter time. So each one of the families that goes into these things, and they go into the same one every year, a lot of them, or they have a group, they have a little cluster that they work in, and that they work that whole area. And they go up every year trying to find stuff. And every, you know, once or twice a season, you'll see a pocket of aquamarine come out. But it could be from here, it could be from here, it could be from there, it could be from there, it could be from there. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is these go in deep. So they don't, it's just not at the surface. This is a sheer cliff. I mean, this is like nearly like 80 degrees, this whole thing. It's not, you know, it's not like tiered. It's not like, you know, a 55-degree slope. This is steep. You'll see that in a second too. And then they're going in 30 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, and they'll work, and at the end of the season, most of them come up with nothing. And so it's, and they're doing this now, wash, rinse, and repeat for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, way back into the, probably they started heavily here in the 50s, and then it started going every year. So the king of Cashmere, which was originally named the king of the Coracle Mountains, because that's the real mountain change and mountain name, and they changed it to Cashmere because it is technically in the area of Cashmere, but it's more catchy. And so Houston wanted it since they acquired it. They got naming rights, so they called it the king of Cashmere. It was all the moons and stars and everything aligned. And the biggest turning point, the biggest thing was that the one miner who found it, or the group, they took pause and they didn't break it or destroy it. And so this gives you a real good idea. So if I go back, that's that little, oh wait, sorry. Right there, that little green dot, that is this now. So now you have some, this is the sheer cliff, and there's the clothes and the guy.
So how did they get up there?
They climb straight up on a rope. So that's how they get up. That's the bathroom over there. Let me change this to pointer. So that's the bathroom over there. So they hike across this little bridge here, which is straight down with no ropes, no nothing. And they just like cling to the wall and go over here, and that's where everybody decides to use the bathroom. This is the mine portal. So this opening right here, that's where the king of Cashmere was found. Straight in there, about 30 meters. And this is the headquarters. This is where they sleep, they eat, they cook. That's everything that they do right there. And so they stay up there for the entire season. So that's like 3 to 4 months. So it's a totally wild experience. And it's also not for the weak of mind. I mean, you have to be able to, you know, to go and put yourself in this environment and stay there is not an easy thing to do.
Do they take that many months material with the food? And
You're going to see. I'm going to show you right now.
Wait, how do they take a shower?
Oh, there's no showers really. You can just, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, you get to know each other real well. So like here, you can see, you know, right there, I mean, it's just a slip or a wrong turn, and you're going down. And then there's the ropes of them, you know, you can see the angle at which they're going up. It's incredibly steep. I mean, there's overhangs that they have to climb up and over. It's crazy.
I was about to say, the generators for lights up there.
Well, the generators for operating the jack, or for lighting, or for whatever it is. And so this is how they get it up. So this is the main rock. These two guys stand there. Let me see if I should point. These two guys stand there, and they keep the cable. And then down on the ground over here are a group of 5 guys pulling. And so they're pulling, they're guiding from the rock, and whatever you're sending up is going up now to the meeting point at the top. And this is how they get everything up. And so they'll send things up every day or every other day. So they'll send up food, they'll send up a phone for someone to make a phone call and then send it back down. I don't know why they don't leave them up there. I guess because they can't charge them. I don't know. But that's what they normally did. Or you know what they would do? They'd send up the phone of the guys who are the ones who manage the area, like the brothers, and send that up so they could talk to people in other countries, like me and Marco. So when this was going on, this was collaborated by myself in New York, Marco Amabili from Canada, the MCP group in Italy, so Federico Pezzotta and his entire crew, and Marco Lorenzoni, who was the man on the ground there at the time. So this was the first photo that I saw of the pocket. And so this is where the turning point is. This is everything. They mined into this, they got here, and normally what would have happened is they would have taken a little pick, they would have gone right here at the top, they would have just hacked into it and got out whatever they could. And they would have wound up in 20 different parts. Now, when I say all the moons and stars aligned, is that this not only was left intact, but the quality of the aquamarines, the quality of the quartz, the orientation, if you notice it's hanging. So the fact that it's hanging is when that happens, all of the residual deposits from acids and rich fluids that come through these things are usually laden with other elements like irons and things that can corrode the crystals. It all goes to the bottom. So if this had grown from the bottom up, or it was just oriented that way, there would have been probably a much different quality of aquamarine. So the aquamarine here had incredible luster, incredible size, and perfection. And so they saw this and they went, we're going to screw this up. So when they figured that out, they then contacted us and said, hey, if you want, you can come in and we'll sell this to you. And I was like, okay. I was like, you'll sell it to me. And I was like, well, how much do you want for it? They were like, we don't know. We're like, but send a guy over here to look at it. And I'm like, well, where is it? Is it in town or what? No, it's up in the mine, in the tunnel. And I'm like, oh. And so they showed me a small group of single crystals that had come from the surrounding bottom part of the pocket that had either been on other pieces or were dislodged from the main group at the top, because there's 1 or 2 crystals that are repaired. And when I saw that, and they said, yeah, there's things in there that are like 8, 10 inches with quartzes, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll send a guy. And so my guy goes up, Marco Lorenzoni, he gets there to Pakistan, he arrives at night, he goes up that night, climbs up, because this man is like the type of guy that you can, hit with a 2x4, and he just goes, what? Did you tap me on the shoulder? He's like that. And so he's just hard as nails. And so he climbs right up. He goes up that steep slope, goes into the tunnel, goes in, puts the helmet there, and takes this photo. And they're like, okay, come on down. And so he goes down, and he sends us the photo, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that looks promising. I was like, I could do something with that. And they go, okay, great. I was like, but I need to know the size. What's the luster like? They were like, no, we're not letting them go back up. They were like, you need to decide on this photo. We spent the next 3 weeks negotiating, and Marco was like a caged lion pacing in these people's house, trying to get up there to go start to work. And finally we reach an accord, and we buy the piece, and they go, okay, now you can go mine it. So then Marco's released, and he goes up, and here you can see a little bit of scale from one side. Now, these are all photos taken upside from the bottom up, looking at it. This crystal is probably about 8 inches. This quartz is probably about 10. And so now here, this is the headquarters again. Right? So to give you, this is where they sleep. This is where they cook. There's the cell phone getting charged and a little line there that's coming off the generator. And there's a look into the pocket. And that's just incredible. So now they got to figure out how to get this out. So Marco's calling me and he's like, I can't do it with the tools they've got. I need different tools. He's like, this is not going to be easy. He's like, I need to go down. So he goes down. He goes off and finds a mining quarry nearby, and he pays them an exorbitant amount of money to get feathers and wedges in the right size. They had feathers and wedges, and he carried some over, but they didn't have the kind of caliber that you need to make this work. And so he gets these feathers and wedges, brings them back up, and spends the next month planning out how to get this out. Those are his notes right there, and that's his sort of apron that he wears when he's doing hard mining, and there's the piece. And then you have the drilling going on, so they're drilling. Those are the famous feathers and wedges. And what you have to do to get this thing out intact is you have to like remove everything to one side of it so you can expose it enough to get access to it. Because if you just go right at it, that's how you destroy it. And that's what they were doing for the first time. And so this was a very big learning process also for these people. They were all, Marco was like, I'm the only one doing work. I'm sitting there all day and 6 guys are just staring at me. And he's like, you know, it's not really nice. And I'm like, yeah, well, they're trying to learn. This is a famous photo that went viral. This was the second photo that went viral. So we were all trying to keep this also quiet too, while this was going on, because we didn't want anybody to know what we were up to and before we got it out of the ground, because you know we could have a million different political pitfalls, or people trying to vie to buy it or to compete or whatever. And here you can see them working inside. Then they start to cover it up and protect the crystals. And you can see he's using the diamond chainsaw there, making the first cuts. Now that he can get under it. These are some of the last cuts, and you can see what they've done is they've stacked foam underneath it. They put these 2 long wooden pieces here and then these chocks here underneath it, and the foam, so that when they make the last cut, it'll fall into the foam, be supported by the wood. They can pull the 2 pieces of wood out, the chocks will fall underneath, and then it'll just be down and in the foam. And then they can write it and carry it out. That's the objective. While wearing sandals. While wearing sandals. So here you can get a real good idea. That's the blue area that they're going to cut out. There's all this super foam. There's the 2 pieces of cross members of wood and the chocks that are going to go slip as soon as you pull those forward. But they got to make the final cut. That's after they've gotten it out. There it is on the mountainside with the other pieces. It weighed, 270 kilos. Kilos. Yeah, it was heavy. It was heavy. And we took off probably 100 from the bottom that we didn't need, that we trimmed in the lab.
The big piece on the right there.
Yeah, well, no, the bottom. It was thick, the bottom. So then they bundled it up. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, we got it out. It's on the, we're all celebrating. And then we're like, wait, we got to get it down. I was like, what are you guys doing to get it down? They're like, oh, we're going to use the cables and the ropes. I was like, okay, I'll pay whatever it is. Get me new cables, get me new ropes. Oh, no, Mr. Daniel, it's fine. It's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay. And this is one of the brothers who actually owns the mountain. That's a guy named Ahmad Cho. Super nice guy. And so there you can see them lowering it down. And then this is the photo that went first viral. This was the first one that went out. This is Ali Muzaffar's father, and there's the piece when he just saw it down. And this went out on like October 20th, and I had already had the piece for probably a month at this point in the lab in Italy, and then people were just like, oh my God, this is all photoshopped, it's not real, it's not the right size, have you seen it? And we went through this whole iteration, and I made a post to counter that immediately because I was just like, no, it's not photoshopped, it's real. And then like an hour later, I was like, okay, I'm taking down this post. And I just took it down. I was like, I'm not going to give this any oxygen. I just left it alone. And so then it goes into the lab, and they started. So they've already trimmed off like 1.5 feet below it, and now they're shaping the back of the rock as they've got most of the crystals covered, washing it. And there's Marco with it after it was completed. It's hard to understand the volume of this object and what it is in person. It is exceedingly impactful. For me, it's the finest mineral specimen on the planet. It's crazy. When you see it, it's how many crystals? Oh, I don't know. There's at least 10 major crystals and probably another dozen smaller ones. There's little ones that stand up and everything like that. It's incredible. This also came out from the pocket. This was one of the only other pieces. This one, that one, those 2, and there it is at the end. So that's the story. Now you're going to get to watch a video of it, and it's going to basically give you the visual live aspect of some of this, the footage that we were able to do. So here you go. So there you go. So to answer Barry's question, what happened next? So I didn't know this, but what happens is Marco left a piece that was deeper in, about another 1.5 meters, where the pocket expanded again. And it was about a 9-inch aquamarine, so not small, on a matrix with another quartz sitting right next to it, making like a little bit of a cross. would have been one of the world's finest aquamarine specimens. I didn't know, or I would have made him stay there and taken it out because I know he could get it out. But he was exhausted, destroyed, his tooth was out. After this was done, he came down and he didn't even tell me about it. And I found out about this a month or a month and a half later. And so they decided, the group, like, oh, we know what to do. We know how to do this. We're going to go in and we're going to take this piece out. So what they did is they took the diamond chainsaw. They got a little access to it. They went 5 centimeters below it and started to dive the blade in. And it just went zip, and the whole thing just went boom, and all fell apart. And they wound up with a single aquamarine crystal, something that would have been, you know, millions of dollars turned into $50,000. It was horrible. Very, very sad. So, but that's the thing that has, you know, this project, I think, really changed the way they think about the modernization of extraction of mineral specimens, and also, you know, the community and the preservation that all of you as collectors share, and the continued investments that we all make into minerals changes the value for these people over there to start to listen to what to do to preserve them. And so that's now catching fire. And I'll show you, you know, 1 or 2 other examples of things that are, you know, this was taken out. This is from the Shigar region, which is unusual for fluorites from Pakistan. But you can see all of these ribs on here are all done by the drill, and then they'll use the diamond chainsaw. So they're using their drills differently. They're using all of their tools differently to get things out in a different way. And so here you can get an idea of the volume of this object. This I have in the lab right now. And it just arrived like a week ago. This is going to be an unbelievable specimen. The color is just this vivid red with a green core, incredible luster with the quartzes. And I mean, there's newspaper and everything on it. I mean, I see what this is after. Crazy luster. So this is going to be an incredible mineral specimen. And it's going to be probably like that big, right? It's not going to be that big, but right now it's on a 2-ton block. Maybe a 3-ton block. So this is what I'm trying to say. The mindset of the miners in this region has been changed forever, and they're looking at things differently. That doesn't mean great minerals are going to come out in more quantity. Great minerals are rare. Having all the right elements for the right quality. I mean, there could be another 50 pockets. I've seen 50 pockets of aquamarine over the last decade that have come out from this region. There's only one pocket that had the quality of King of Cashmere. These one-offs that we saw Barry's piece earlier and the one that was on the left, there's only a handful of those type of quality crystals. What the difference is now is that if they do encounter that sort of circumstance, there's a half a chance that it's not going to get destroyed and come out repaired or broken, or, you know, whatever else could go wrong.
Danny, can I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yeah.
On that secondary aqua, after the main one came out,
Yeah.
why did it disintegrate using the diamond chainsaw? What could they have done differently?
You need to leave.
That would be more gentle.
You just need to leave enough space. 5 centimeters is 2 inches. You need to leave like 2 feet. If you leave 2 feet, the vibration is not going to break it up or cause it, you know, and what's the threshold? You know, err on the side of caution. Add 3 feet, you know, but don't go 5 centimeters. 2 inches below where the crystal. So, you know, the most friable part of a mineral is right where it meets the matrix, and, you know, 2 inches is not a lot of rock. And you're adding vibration and cutting, and they don't have perfect water. It's not. The guy's probably a novice. If you move the blade like this a little bit, or to the right or left, that's going to affect all these different things. So it broke. Here's another one. This is one that belongs to the Arkenstone. This is Rob's, and he acquired it, but he said I could use it just for an example. They're doing this in China. And so here's, you know, a stibnite cavity that's been extracted in its entirety. Isn't that crazy? So it's a wonderful object, and normally it would be broken apart. And, you know, I don't know, it's interesting to preserve it like this, but how many fine mineral specimens might be in there? There's probably at least a dozen that could be made into nice aesthetic groups. But the trick is that if you wanted to do that, you could do it now in an environment where you're out, you're not in a mine, you've got controls, you can protect them, you can do it intellectually. Here, obviously he's going to keep it together because it's so cool that they took it out. So that's really, really a fun thing.
Is that staying in country?
What's that?
Is that staying in country?
No, I think he's bringing it here. I think that's his intention. I think it's still there right now, but I think he's bringing it here. Pretty cool. So there you go.